Hello and welcome to REGO-FIX Tech Chat. My name is David McHenry. I am the Engineering and Technical Manager here at REGO-FIX USA. An issue that we hear about all the time is the difficulty people have machining with a collet such as an ER collet. Well, why is that, and what are the solutions to make sure that you can get a good grip on that collet and not have any tool failures? If you are using a non-performance ER system, something with a bright and shiny nut where there's no performance coating on the inside or anything to increase your grip strength, well, sometimes machining with an ER collet can be difficult. As you've seen in our torque test videos, a regular non-performance ER system doesn't transfer a lot of that clamping torque into actual grip torque. So the first option you would have to increase that would be to go to something like the high Q nut, which is a high performance grip nut. On top of that, you would be able to go to the friction bearing nut, which is going to give you about 20% more clamping force than even the regular high Q nut. But what about when this isn't even enough for what you need to hold on to? When your application is so tough that something as good as the high Q bearing nut doesn't give you enough grip strength, well, what are your options? They are rather limited, but REGO-FIX does offer the secuRgrip ER collet, an ER32 and ER40. But how does it work? Let's take a quick moment and go through that. The idea of the collet is actually threaded, just like you would see into a regular tapped hole. The back of the collet actually has a cap with a built-in backup screw. The cap and the screw are very, very important, and we'll explain why in just a moment. You will use a standard Weldon flat end mill. This has a to the Weldon specification flat ground on it. And you will use a profiled insert that has a male thread on the face of it. This insert lays into the Weldon flat of your cutting tool. I'm going to hold that with my thumb, and I'm now going to take and thread this thread profile into my ER secuRgrip collet. I'm going to thread this all the way down until it makes contact with my backup screw. Well, why is there a backup screw in an ER collet? You've seen our previous videos. We've talked about not using set screws to preset tool length, but why do I have one here? Well, in this case, the backup screw is part of the cap, which is connected to the collet. It's going to move with the collet as it's clamped down. It's not going to interfere with the clamping force or the TIR of my tool. The backup screw is really important that I actually make contact with the back of my cutting tool. This is threaded. If I'm not making contact with the backup screw, I actually stand the risk of the cutting tool being able to move because it's not locked in fully into the locked position. By taking it all the way to the back of the backup screw, I now have resistance and it's locked permanently in. Those threads are fully locked into the threads on the inside of the collet. So really, really straightforward. I've now locked the cutting tool to the collet. Let's move over to the bench and go through what an assembly looks like, and then also what are other applications for this. Let's go over the proper assembly of an ER secuRgrip collet. It's not that different from a regular ER collet, but let's go through the process anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and take my nut, I'm going to take my secuRgrip collet, and I'm going to go ahead and put those together. Now I'm actually going to set that aside, and I'm going to go back to my cutting tool and my profiled insert. I'm going to take that profiled insert, again I'm going to set it right inside of that Weldon flat. I'm going to hold that with my finger and I'm going to thread it into my collet nut assembly. Now, just like I had just mentioned, all the way down to my backup screw, and that backup screw is adjustable, so you can move that around to get the projection length you need. Once I have this together, I can take this assembly right to my collet holder, and I'm ready to assemble this. Now, just hand tight right now, but I would actually go from here into my Torco block or torque fixture lock that down to the appropriate value of 100 foot-pounds for an ER32. But this is the simple assembly. What about applications that really don't go to regular tool holders, that maybe go to like a live tool holder or an angle head? Let's go through some requirements for those assemblies. As we just mentioned, there are other applications for secuRgrip collets. One of those is in live tooling. Live tooling generates lots of torque, and you're really limited to the type of nuts or the output that's available. Hence, the ER secuRgrip is a good fit for high clamping force, anti-pull-out security. The only problem is not every single live tool that's out there has the proper collet cavity built into it. You have a limited amount of Z-axis in your lathe, so a lot of times the sacrifice comes on the inside of the collet cavity by shortening that. Well, when you shorten that, I run into problems with the cap not fitting correctly. Now, the example we have here today actually is deep enough for this, but there's something we need to watch out for. Inside of this collet cavity is a very large backup screw. That backup screw actually won't allow me to get the ER collet all the way in. It's actually bottoming out on the back of that backup screw. So let's pull that backup screw out first. All right, now that backup screw is out of the way and we can fully get our ER collet into that cavity, let's go through the exact same assembly process. Now I can take my collet nut assembly and go right into my collet cavity for my live head. I don't have any problems with the secuRgrip collet making contact with the back of the cavity. So the first things first, if you're wanting to use an ER secuRgrip collet into a live head, you got to look inside the collet cavity and make sure you have the proper depth to fit. Information on the collet length can be found in our catalog and on the web page. As you've seen, the ER secuRgrip collet is very, very easy to assemble. It does have some things that you as an operator need to look at and check to make sure it's going to work properly. If you have any questions on what you've seen in the video today, please reach out to your REGO-FIX technical team. We're here to answer your questions.